We're continuing today Perek Daled about the Mavar of Bnei Yisrael over the Yarden. Today we'd like to discuss a very unique topic, which is very much discussed in Shas in many places, but we'll start slowly and see what is the halacha and what is the din that's being said here in Perek Daled. Vayasu came bnei Yisrael pasuk ches kasher tziva Yehoshua vayisro 12 avonim mitoich hayarden kasher diber Hashem el Yehoshua lemispar shivte bnei Yisrael vayavirum imom el amaloin vayanichum shom. 12 avonim heikim Yehoshua besoich hayarden tachas matzav raglei hakohanim noisei abroim bris Vayu Shom Ad Hayoim Hazeh. So this is the new 12 Avonim that we spoke about last week. V'hakohanim noiseoren oimdim besoich hayarden ad toim kol adovor asher tzivo Hashem es Yehoshua ledaber elom kechol asher tzivo Moshe es Yehoshua vayamar lo ha'om vayavayu. Zokt Rashi. It says that the Kohanim, which were Noiser Orein, stood in the Yarden ad toim until the end. Kol hadover asher tzivo Hashem es Yehoshua ledaber Elohim. What is this toim kol hadover? It doesn't say anything in the post. Zokt Rashi. Kemoi sheshoninu b'maseches Saita. Oidom bayarden. Omar lem Yehoshua de'u loma atem oivrim es hayarden. Al-menas shetoirishu es yoshvei kol yoshvei ha'aretz. Rashi says that while they were in the Yarden, Yeshua told them, you should know, what is the reason, why are you here, ad asher, you have to be toirishu es bnei ha'aretz. But this is very much an abbreviated nusach. If I were to look in the Gemara in the Flamedalad, in the full Gemara, so I'll see the Gemara state as a oidam bayarden. Okay, so the beginning is very much like Rashi. Omalem Yeshua de'u al kmatem oivrim es hayarden al menas shetoishivu es yoish ve'oretz mipneichem shenemar v'hoirashtem es kol yoish ve'oretz mipneichem. Im atem oisim ken mutov. If you're going to do that, if you're willing to undertake upon yourself that the aviras hayarden, the penetrating and going into Eretz Yisrael, is in order to be moirish the yoish ve'oretz mipneichem mutov, fine. Ve'im la'av boin mayim v'shoisfin oisichem. If you see, the word is spelled oisichem. What is oisichem? Oisi ve'eschem. Zocht Rashi. Oidem bayardem Rashi in Soita da Flamedalet. Omar lem Yeshua k'diksiva koyanim noisorim oin besoch hayarden atom kol advorim asher tziva Hashem v'zeh adover da'och iksiv b'Moshe כי אתם אויבים לארץ כנען והרשתם, כלומר, שיעברו es hayarden, hisno imom al menas le'rishon. In other words, Yeshua is not only clarifying the Matorah, but he's making a t'nai, al menas. It's not just telling them, listen, this is the reason why you're going to Eretz Yisrael. Yeshua is coming to say, al menas, which is a regular condition, this is the t'nai you're going to Eretz Yisrael. It's very interesting. Toises darfenot gleich in Seita. Toises zogt hazeh. Brings the Yerushalmi. Omar Eish Lokish. Bayarden kiblu aleim es hanistoris. Okay, which means there is a klal in Kol Kula Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh. And if one person is chayte, somebody else is nenash, you are chroi for your fellow friends aveira, yet this was only on chatoim gluim. In other words, if I have a friend, my neighbor, and I see him being bechal Shabbos befaresia, so now als the halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh, everyone is nene shavuri. Here in the Yarden, right now, whilst they're crossing the Yarden, they nischadesh a new din of arvis. Not only the chatoim which are done beseiser, begolui, but also the chatoim is which somebody else, your fellow friend, will do a chet beseiser. You also nenash also omalem Yeshua. Imanet ein atem bekablim some stories hamayim. This mea yarden, you just had a nace splitting him. Boin v'shoitftim eschem. They're going to come and wash you off. In other words, he's basically forcing them to be a guarantor, to underwrite somebody else's chet, not only to the extent that he used to be till today. Kol Yisroel Areivim zelazeh. I see a guy eating chazer, I see a guy Michal Shabbos, I'm a chuyev, I have a din arvis, I'm a chuyev on him. But also if a guy doesn't beseiser, if a guy will do from now on, you go into Eretz Yisrael, and your fellow friend, your neighbor, is doing an aveir beseiser, Gans Klal Yisrael is mechuyev for that aveir. Amazing. Omar Rav Simoin brings Taisus Yerushalmi, Bar Zvid, v'ye'ois. It is indeed true. Teida lo, I'll bring you a raya, because soon we're going to learn the story of Ochon. Ochon was someone who Klal Yisrael was going to be kovish de'ai, choto, v'rubam shel Sanhedrin noflo. We'll see Milchemes Sa'ai when Bnei Yisrael were kovish Yeshua made a certain hekdesh, a certain aktzah. And he said the sholol that they will catch in the war will be used to fix and to build the Mishkan in the Gilgal. How are we going to do that? We're going to be machrim the sholol, we're going to take the gold, we're going to take the silver, we're going to take the metal, and we're going to build the Mishkan in Gilgal. And Ochon went and took part of the sholol to his own pocket. We'll learn the whole sugya in Ochon. And he was toimented in the oil, and because of that, Gans Klal Yisrael lost the milchama of Milchemes Sa'ai. It says, we'll learn Milchemes Sa'ai. But upon him, the first version of Milchemes Sa'ai, Klal Yisrael lost because right now, while they're going into the Yarden, the Mekabel on top of themselves, Milvad the Din Arvis on Begolui, Din Arvis Beseiser, and by Ochon nobody knew. By Ochon he was matmin be'oil, he went to his Aganim Banacht, he went and he took Aderes, he took a Pels, whatever. We're going to see he's taking. And then Klal Yisrael is losing. Zaraya and Yeshua had to make a goyrol and find out who is the one who was chayta till he was captured. Ochon, the whole story of Ochon, we'll learn it later. So from here, Akoponim, this the Yerushalmi Tosfos brings down that from here Zaraya, the Klal Yisrael took upon themselves crossing the border to Eretz Yisrael, not only the din arvus begoli, which was there till then, but also the din arvus of every chait beseiser, which apparently is not so poshut. That's a shittas Yerushalmi. If I look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Samach Gimel, it's not so poshut. Vayis Teises Semachleikus. The Gemara in Sanhedrin state Rabbi Yochanan Oman B'Shum Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Chamisha. There was not one Meilois of Ochon. There were 5 of them. Arba B'mei Moshe. There were 4 of them B'mei Moshe. Ve'echad B'mei Yeshua. Shenemar, when Ochon confesses, he says, Anoichi Chotosi V'kazois Osisi. I was be'emes, I did it before already. It's not my first gneve. I did b'mei Moshe. I was going in all the milchamas. I went and took for the sholol, even though there was a din not to touch the sholol. So the Gemara, why the whole story of Ochon is a ganze gratschke, the whole Sefer Yeshua shaking up, because Ochon is getting it oynish for being moyel in the Cher Ayos moyel 4 times before. Omar Rabbi Yochanan B'Shum Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon L'fi Shaloi Ona Shalon Historis Ad She'ovru Yisrael L'Sayarden Ad Yisrael L'Sayarden. So until now, Klal Yisrael wasn't there Nash because he didn't beseiser. He didn't go eat B'chal Shabbos and Pharesia. He went and he gave it. Aganim Bad Nacht. Nobody saw. So until now, by the Me'ilah from Moshe, he did beseiser, and there was no Gzeir, there was no Tnai that the Din Arvis is Chal on Dover Shebeseiser, only Dover Shebegoli. So Mela they're Potter, Mela they weren't Chayev. But now the Chayev, that the more Ketanoy. And he stories La Hashem Elokeinu v'Ani L'Stonu Levaneinu Ad Oilom, Loma Nokud Al Levaneinu V'Al Ayin Shebe'ad. If you look in the Sefer Torah, Hanistories is 11 pintalach. Hanistories La Hashem Elokeinu, there are 11 points on top of it. Loma Nokud, Melamed Agav, this 11 Nekudas is very great in the philosophy of the Goyen. These 11 Nekudas is the ganze inyan of having 11 shiurs in the Megillah. Maybe we'll get close to Purim, we'll say a whole shiur about it. Malkoponim, and Esther is Aster Ponai, and Anistoris Lashem Elkein, and this 11, the number 11 of the Nekudas, that's the Mekor of the Goyen's Megillah of 11 shiurs. That's not the mokum to discuss. Lama nokud alonu levaneinu val ayin shebe'ad oilom melamed sheloi osa ala ona shal historos ashiu ovu yisrael say div Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rabbi Nechemye v'chi od osa ala ona shal historos lo oilom v'aloik v'neema ad oilom, elo keshem shelo onash al nistoris, kach lo onash al oinshi shebegolui at sheovru Yisrael l'sayarden. Elo ochon my time, I anush mishum davayade beishto yubonov. And Nehemiah comes in Dingzach. He says, Lonu leboneinu ad oilom. There was no oynish bechlal on the deen of, even on chatoim shebegolui, there was no oynish ad sheovru Yisrael l'sayarden. So what is the tam in ochon? The tam in ochon is sheyodu beishto yubonov. His wife and his children knew about it. It wasn't really a gneva b'seiser, and that's why. But on the gneva b'seiser, you're really potter thereafter also. Malkaponi the Yerushalmi says that from here on, one of the tnoim of the Yeshua was that you mechuyev to undertake upon yourself guarantee not only for dover shebegolui but also for dover shebeseiser. How long did this last for? How long did the Klaus are we today mechuyev? Somebody else doesn't have a Kol Yisroel Areivim. Somebody chil Shabbos. I have takei chiyuv. But do I have a chiyuv? What happened? So the truth of the matter is, I'll give you a background information. The Gemara, the Yerushalmi says, Beyavne, Taisus brings down Hutro ha'aretzua. This retzua, this band, this belt of chiyuv, of arvus and stories was Hutar in Yavne. What happened in Yavne? So let me explain. The Gemara says a story that in the day that they threw out Rabbi Gamliel, we spoke about it already, and for the Nesias, because the things with Rabbi Lezer, the whole story of the Gemara in Brochus, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shua. So the Gemara says that they made Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah into the years 18 years old, and Arayanik ben Shivim Shono, the whole Shaila, once they miver him for the Nesias, Rabbi Gamliel, who should become, you can make Rabbi Kiva, you can make Rabbi Shua. So they made Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah 18-year-old boy, and Hashemayim Iskimu, and 18 hair grew, and he became the Rosh Basin. State the Gemara. Amoyer the Gemara. Gemara in Brochus, the Dav Chavches. Oysa yoim silku l'shemer HaPesach, v'nosnu loim reshus l'talmidim li'ikonis. They opened up the doors. You can't go in. Brisky Yeshiva, there's no way to get in. It's too overloaded. Be'oysa yoim, that they put in Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, shehoyo Rabbi Gamliel machriz ve'oimed. Why didn't they let in Bachrim when they came in beforehand in the times of Rabbi Gamliel? Called Talmid she'ein toichoy keboroi lo yikonos lebeis hamedrash. Any Talmid that is inside is not transparent. Toichoy keboroi lo yikonos. Hahu yoime. But when they opened the door in the new melucha, in the new nesias of Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, isvasvu kama safsolim. Shaila is how many pliyabo Rabbasa by Yistoy of Rabbi Chado Ma'arbamois, Chado Mashvamois, 400 new Talmidim, 700 new Talmidim. What's happening here? So the Goyen says that the Sibir that Rabbi Gamliel was Memane Shemer to find out Mtoiche Kebaroi, you have to understand what kind of Tkufa. We're living in the Tkufa, there was a major machlekes, the Kasat Tzdukim and the Kasat Prushim. The Prushim were the Frume, the Tzdukim were the contemporary who was trying to, we know it's Filasoim Mochas Shabbos, we know that the Tzdukim had their own Parshanu, their own commentary of how to tie up Torah. There was a major machlekes who is going to rule, the Tzdukim and the Prushim. Rabbi Gamliel was the head of the Kasa Prushim, so he was choishish, the Tzdukim are going to be coming in and be koifer in Chazal and be mishana the mikroes that we are learning all the Gzeras HaKosim from. Therefore, before he let in anyone to the Bes Medrash, Otmoyer Geat, that the guy who is coming in is somebody for the Kas HaTzdukim. Somebody who was known as a tzeduk, of course, wasn't able to get in. But now, Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, a new era, he threw out the Shemer, and he said every Talmid could come in. In other words, this due diligence of knowing if somebody is the Kasat Tzdukim was stopped at the time of the era of the new Nesias of Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah. Somebody is the Emes Tzduki, can't come in. Somebody is not Emes Tzduki, Yuchoshish, maybe Beseiser. Now, you have to understand, we're talking about the hand of the Churban of Abayis. Rabbi Yochanan is Matzliach to convince the Kesa, the Reimi, Ten li Yavne v'chachameo. He says, you know what, I'll let you take over Yerushalayim, but I want you to let me, I want Torah to stay. He gives him Yavne v'chachameo. The Shevis HaPleite, that Mishom Yotza Torah Yisrael was is Yavne. He came to Yavne with the Chachamim, and afterwards he gave over the Nesias to Rabbi Gamliel. He went to live in Beruchayil. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai moves over the Malchus HaTorah, which was in Yerushalayim, right before the Churban. He moves over to Yavne. Steht in Yerushalmi b'Yavne hutu ha'retzua. Why? Steht in Yerushalmi, Yotzo bas koil ve'omro, ein lochem esek b'nistoris. You know what? Leave it alone. Until now, we had a takane from the time of Yeshua, which is really 1,339 years after Yeshua is coming in, 2488. That's the time of coming into Eretz Yisrael, and he's talking about the Churban Abayis. In the time of Churban Abayis, some 1340, he came out a year before the Churban, and he went to Yavne. Yavne omru ein lochem esek b'nistoris hutro ha'retzuo. So therefore, as of the Goyen, about this hutro ha'retzuo. So right now there is no more arvis. This arvis was an era in Klal Yisrael, 1,340 years, where you mechuyev in the Areivim that you mekabel here in the Yarden of Nistoris. This Nistoris wasn't such a short-lived. It went out through the Gilgal, through Mishkan Shiloi, through Neve Givon, through Beis Elomim, until after the Churban of Bai Sheni, where the Churban Beis Rishon, Bai Sheni, and by the end of Churban Bai Sheni, there was Posak, Hutu HaRetzuo. Here is no more Ein Lochem Chelik Ben Nistoris, and therefore the Besmedish can get bigger. Even a Talmud, which is not Teichei Kebarei, so the Goyen, it's not only Teichei Kebarei that's Dukim. Somebody who can make an Aveir, since I don't have responsibility anymore, Afyenem's Eisek Ben Nistoris, I can let him in and open the door. So Mimele, we have over here a Kabbalah San Nistoris according to the Yerushalmi, which was something which was lasted for 1,340 years, and afterwards it stopped. Hutu ha'retzu agav. There's a phenomenal Tzodek HaKoyen who speaks about Yavne Hutu ha'retzu. I don't want to get involved. It's more Kabbaladik, but he says that Shteit in Arizal. I saw Brad B'Shem the Goyen, but not such a falez lacherot. But in Arizal says that the Shulchan brings it down. The Mechaber brings it down. It's that Yavne is Rosh Tevis ba'Havdolah, Yain B'Somim Ner Havdolah. That's Yain B'Somim Ner Havdolah. And he says the Tnuah of Yavne is from down to up. The Tnuah of Yavne is from down to up because Yain, you taste in your mouth, is the Te'imo, the Peh is the lowest aver. B'Somim is Chushareach. It's a little up, it's in the nose. The Einaim, the Eish, is Lamalo Imenu. And the Avdolah is in the moyach of a person to be mavdil bein dover ledover. So the tnuah of Yavne steht in Arizal is a tnuah from down to up. In the Avdolah we say hamavdil bein kodesh lechoil. Kodesh is das. Das is chibur. V'hodam yoda is chova yishtoi. Das is to connect each other. Choil is meloshon pirud. So the goyin. Choil is kechoil asher asfas hayom. It's gargirim of choil. It's little kernels. It's little Perurim of Chol. So Hamavdil ben Kodesh Chol, if we come out from the Kedusha of the Ichud to Chol, is Hutra Haretzuo, B'Yavne Hutra Haretzuo. Yeah, so the Tzaddik is mechaberet with the halacha of Nistoris, because the Asik of Nistoris, the having Asik ben Nistoris, is the ability to make the Havdalah, the ultimate Havdalah ben Kodesh Chol, but B'Yavne Hutra Haretzuo. Bottom line, we have on the Gelin Yaneinu here, we have a din of Arvis. We knew these halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozedam chayev on somebody else's chatoim. And this din Arvis is not only for a certain tkufa in the Yarden, there were mekabalem and Nistoris, which expired sometimes later during the Churban of Bais Shein. This din of Arvis is not only din in Chayvis, but it's also din in Mitzvahs. We have to know, since this is the Mokim, so we should focus a little bit on this halacha, that not only on this Chayvis of a person, but as Chuyas of a person is also halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh. There's a Mishnah. We'll start with the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah. Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah in Daf Chavtes, steht a Mishnah. Steht, Cher Sheite v'kotne in moitzin esarad miyedei choivasam. Ze ha-klal, Kol she'einu mechuyev bedover, einu moitzi esarad miyedei choivasam. The Cher Sheite v'kotne, the potter from mitzvahs, they cannot be moitzi somebody else. So the Gemara, Toni Ravade Barei de Rav Zere, Kol habrachos kulam afal pi sheyotza moitzi, chutz mibirkas halechem ubirkas hayayin, shim lo yotza moitzi, vim yotza eino moitzi. Every bracha, every birkas ha-mitzvahs, even though you mekayim the mitzvah, you can go ahead and be moitzi someone else. Zog the Rosh. V'bal the din arvis, Kol Yisroel Areivim zelo zeh, is not only a halacha of the chayva that I'm responsible for somebody else's chet, but I'm also have the arvus for lizuchus. Zog the Rosh, is a be'emes, if the other guy wasn't mekayim yet kiyah shofar, so I am considered b'ze'ei rampin, a babur de babur, that I am a chuya bedover. Because since I have a din arvis, since I'm guarantor for Yedim's mitzvah, I'm a chuyev, it's considered as I wasn't mekayim the mitzvah b'shleimus. Therefore, even though I was yoytzi the mitzvah, I could be moitzi the other one. The mitzvah that has ano, l'moshel gefen, and birkas ha'peyos, birkas ha'gefen, or birkas ha'lechem. The be'emes is there's no inyan to make a bracha by a priyagofen. You want to be nehene, you have to make a bracha because you're not allowed in the henim bracha. Here the Gemara says, since the ano is the mitzvah, here you have to be toyem in order to be moitzi the other guy yedei chayvasa, because the bracha is on the ano, the bracha is not on the mitzvah. More says a phenomenal story. Yanai HaMelech, it's important to know that Yanai HaMelech was a Malchus Beis HaChashmonei, he was a kohen. And he was a tzeitzor, he was a Melech Yehuda. His brother Aristobulus was married to Shlemtzian Amalka. She was called Shlemis Alexandra. And he put everybody in jail. When he died, his wife Shlemis marries Yanai HaMelech. She takes him and she marries him, her brother-in-law. And although she's an almana and a kohen gadol, she makes him in a kohen gadol. As a kohen gadol, also ba'almana, was a major machlekes with the Prushim, between the Prushim and the Tzdukim that we spoke about at the same era of Kohen Gadol Mary Almona, could he become a Kohen Gadol or not? She went her way through, and he became Yanai HaMelech, became the Melech, and he became the Kohen Gadol. He worked in Beis HaMikdash. He was married to his sister, to his killed brother's wife, who was the Malka. He went afterwards to exile. He went to Mitzrayim. He was Yotzef and Mulchama with Talmai and Cleopatra. It was a Vels Mulchama State in Mitzrayim. At that time, he made his wife Shlemis Amalka, Alexandra. She was the queen, and she was married to Yanai. And Yanai was the Yanai HaMelech. Who is this Shlemis? Vemen Shidach, mit Vemen Ota Shidach Giton, this Yanai HaMelech. Yanai HaMelech, who is the Rosh of the Tzdukim, is marrying Shlemis. Who is Shlemis? Shlemis is the sister of Shimon ben Shetach. Shimon ben Shetach was the Rosh Kas at Tzdukim. His sister is marrying into his sister, is a sister of the Rosh Beis Din of the Tzduki, of the Pushim, whereby her husband is the Rosh Kas ha-Tzduki. Gemara says a story that Yanai, because of this machlekes, Yanai killed Kol Chacham Yisrael. Her brother, she led a protectia, and her brother, even though he was the Rosh Beis Din from the Pushim, he was hidden and he didn't touch him. His brother-in-law didn't touch him. Gemara says a Maise, the one the Gemara Bracha says a Maise in Daf Memtes, that after Yanai killed Rav Chacham Yisrael, he calls in guest and they asked him to so Zog Avot. He was Melech Yisrael. Zog Avot, he couldn't say a word. Not only Bizah, they came to Birkas Hamazon. They say make Birkas Hamazon. He doesn't know how to make Birkas Hamazon. So he told his sister, you know what? Du bist doch a Schwester von der Frume. You are a brother. You have a mishpacha b'dei Redis. Go ahead and bring your brother Shimon ben Shetach. And I promise I'm not going to touch him. She goes and she brings Shimon ben Shetach. And Shimon ben Shetach said, he told him, you know, the Chachmei Yisrael, some people are here visiting. Could you please make a bracha for us? Zogt Shimon ben Shetach, I didn't eat with you. How can I make a Birkas Hamazon for you? So Yanai HaMelech gave him a kois. Shimon ben Shetach made the Ber Priagofen on the kois, and he was mevorach. As the Gemara says, Omar Rab Yechonon Shimon ben Shetach de Ovad legarmu de Ovad. Shalei kedin nosa. He did midas atzmoi. Why? Because lo oilom in the moitzia sarab midei chavosam achi yitam v'yoichal kazayis dogon. He should have eaten. And Taisa says that since he drank a revi's yain, it's considered. But this is the makor that Shimon ben Shetach went and made a bracha of Birkas Hamazon to be moitzi the chachomim who ate their dinner at the house of Yanai HaMelech. Okay. The Gemara comes along and says. The Gemara comes along and says, what is the halacha by Birkas HaMitzvahs? Let's go back to Birkas HaMitzvahs. Why by Birkas HaMitzvahs in Yotzo Moitzi? Forget about Birkas HaNehenim, which is a Shmuas, because the Birkas HaGefen, it's possible that Bibaldi Brocha is not to make the Brocha, but to be Nehene. If you're not Nehene, so then you can be Yotze. But what's in Birkas HaMitzvahs? Okay. So, stating more, the reason why Birkas HaMitzvahs Afal Pi Sheyotze Moitzi, because Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh. What does it mean, Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh? Areivim means you guarantee somebody borrows $10,000, he needs a guarantor, you're signing your star. So Kol Zman, the Alvo is not Nifra, Mitzad the Loive, the Orav is Mechuyev, the Orav, if it's Orav Kablan, you could be Nifra in the Orav Tchila. So Klal Yisrael was Mechuyev in the mitzvahs, they were Mekabel upon themselves through the Din of Arvis, that every person, so long, is somebody in Klal Yisrael that did not fulfill the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar, did not fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyas HaMegillah of Netilas Lulav, you, via the halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh, you still considered, Rashi says, v'choshiv ke mechuyev b'davar. You consider mechuyev b'davar. Right? More says, what's the mekor? Ein lecho mitzvah mitzvah. Sheksuv b'teireh shel nichesu aleo 48 brises shel 600,000 v'shloishes alofim v'chameshmoes v'chamishim. The question is, how many times are you Orav? The more has the ganze Shaila in the multiplication tables. But bottom line, Ein lecha kol mitzvah mitzvah, there's 48 brisen, and everybody's Orav for anybody else is mitzvah. Right? What is the halacha? That's the halacha if I was yoytze the mitzvah. If I was yoytze the mitzvah, so the halacha is that I could be moitzi somebody else, although I was already yoytze the mitzvah, because Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh v'nichshav mechuyev b'davar. What happens if I wasn't yoytze the mitzvah, and I'm going to l'chatchila be moitzi the mitzvah? I wasn't yoytze the mitzvah. So then, why is the other guy being yoytze the mitzvah with me? Here we have another halacha, and I would like to, since it's a delicate subject, it's negeh here, so I would like to spend a little time focusing on it. More of this. The Navi starts a story in Sefer Melachim, in Perek Chav Beis, Sefer Melachim Beis. State a story that Chilkiah HaKoyen found the Sefer Torah Tachas HaNidbach Bebeis HaMikdash. He comes to Shofan HaSefer at the time, and he goes to Yeshiyahu HaMelech, and he tells them, you know what, there's no Sefer Torah, there was a few years, there was no Sefer Torah in Klal Yisrael, you should know there'll be a Churban. And he tells them, here's the Sefer Torah, he found the Sefer Torah, he said, do Torah in Klal Yisrael. So Yeshiyahu HaMelech doesn't trust him, and he goes to Hulda Neviah, who was a cousin of Yirmiyahu, who lived in that Kufa, and he asked her, what does she say? V'atoimer aleim koyomar Hashem elokei Yisrael imru la'ish asher shalach eschem elai koyomar Hashem hineni mevi lo el hamokem hazeh ve'al yoshvo al kol divrei hasefer asher koro melech Yehuda. Okay? Everything, we read the Torah, look what it says over here. You're doing so many chatoim. Look, the Sefer asher koro Yirmiyahu for the Gemara Akasha in Sukkot Daf Lamed Ches. Why does she say asher koro Yirmiyahu, asher koro melech Yehuda? Yeshiyahu didn't read it. It says Vayikra Shofan Lifnei HaMelech. So the Gemara says that since Shofan read whatever it says in the Sefer Torah Lifnei HaMelech, and HaMelech heard it, then there's a halacha of Shemei HaKohen. We have a halacha of Shemei HaKohen. Anytime that is a din kloli, somebody hears something else from somebody else, so it's considered as if he is the one who said it. In other words, even without the din arvis, Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh, if somebody else make a bracha, I can be yoytze midin Shemei HaKohen. So in other words, now theoretically there are two different reasons why if somebody already was yoytze the mitzvah, so then he's moitze midin Kol Yisroel Areivim Zelazeh, that's the din arvis, nikra mechuyev b'davar. Somebody else was not yet mechuyev. He's reading first time. So the reason why I'm yoytze is because Shemei HaKohen. What does Shemei HaKohen means? When I hear somebody else make a bracha, I'm considered as if I myself made a bracha. So Machlekes, Rashi and Taisus in the din of Shemei HaKohen. What is the din of Shemei HaKohen? Rashi learns, like in every shlichus, I make somebody a shliach to Mekadosh Yisha. It's possible that the shlichus, the maise is done by the shliach, but the chalois is misyaches to the meshaleach. Suadin in Mevorach. The Mevorach is the Shliach who's moitzi to somebody else. He's making the Maisa, but the Maisa is Misyaches to the Mishalech. I could tell a person, be Mekadesh Me'isha. I could make a Shlichus for mitzvahs, to Mafish Mitrume. He's making the Afrosha, it's Chal for me. He's Mekadesh the Isha, she's Mekudesh to me. He's Megarish the Isha, she become Ois my wife. So too in mitzvahs, I can have somebody making the mitzvah for me. According to Taises, that the reason why Shemea Ke'oine works is not because of a regular parsha of Shlichus, but the Shmieh is also a pe'ula of Dibur. In other words, a mensch can read midem oil, a person can talk with his mouth. A person could also talk through hearing. It's azah sot, the Shmieh is also a Dibur. And by hearing, you're considering Vel Zokt, Amidaf Red Midem oil, who says you have to speak with your mouth. You can speak also by hearing. As I state in Tesis. Nafkamina is what happens if somebody stands Milish Menesra and he hears the Mevorach. Well, somebody's bad at Tfilas Lachash. And the Shlech Tzibur says Kedusha, according to Rashi, you're supposed to stop and listen to the Chazan and Yoitz Zayin the Chayvas Kedusha, and only afterwards you are Yoitz, only afterwards you mamshich in the Tefillah. You're holding Milish Menesra. Allah Alamaisi, come to shul, you come late. You're holding Milish Tilish Menesra, the Chazan is holding a middle of Chazor Sashatz. And he's saying Kedusha. Rashi Shita is stop and listen to the Chazan and be mechaven to be Yoitze Kedusha, Schoivas Kedusha, and then mamshich b'tefillah. Why? Because even you through Shemei HaKohen, you're not considering, it's not called Afsaka in Tefillah. Why? Because you're not Oyin Mamish, you only Yoitze Dei Choive with the Pe'ula that the other guy makes for you. The Pe'ula for somebody else making for you in the middle of Yishmanesra is not called Afsaka. Taisa says you cannot be mechaven to be Yoitze Choivas Kedusha, because since the halacha of Shemei HaKohen is Shemei heist reden, it's nicht reden mit dem oil, it's not speaking with your mouth, but speaking with your ears, that's considered enough to have a hefsek in tefillah. But that's the halacha of Shemei HaKohen, nochamo. We have a halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelazeh. I can be moitzi you, yedei choive, midin arvis, and then there's a halacha of Shemei HaKohen that's not a din arvis, that even when I was not yoyetze, when I'm making the bracha, I'm making the bracha for you. Either by me making the bracha for you, I'm just performing the maaseh and the yichus, the credit you get, or by me making a bracha and you shemeya, through hearing you considered like you yourself made the bracha. The Pnushu is mechadish, right? That even when the mashmiya was not yoytzei dei choiva, at the end of the day, shemeya ke'oini only works because he's halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelazeh. Because since there is halacha of arvis, you could be a din of Shemei HaKohen. If there wouldn't be a din of Yisrael Areivim zelazeh, there wouldn't be a din of Shemei HaKohen. Shemei HaKohen could only be considered that you answered and you made the bracha because there is halacha of Kol Yisrael Areivim zelazeh. If that's the case, what I need b'chlal at the din of Shemei HaKohen, the din arvis is alone. If every Shemei HaKohen needs the support of the din Kol Yisroel Areivim zelazeh, so even without the din of Shemei HaKohen, stam yenek emachan bracha, and I can be yoytzeh midin arvis. So Kvega says the reason why you need the din Shemei HaKohen, because otherwise it would be considered a din of bracha if you use yoytzeh yedei choive, and if you'll be mevorach again, it will be considered a bracha levatala. In order to pater the halacha of bracha levatala, you say Shemei HaKohen. You make the bracha for yenem, and yenem is considered in mechuyev bebracha, comes out the bracha is not a bracha levatala. It's a ganze shmuz. We have two halachas. We have one halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelazeh, and this halacha of Yisroel Areivim zelazeh is not only in Averis like we mekabel over here, is also halacha in mitzvahs I can be moitzi you. Midin arvis. Rashi says shenech shav miktzas mechuyev bedavar. There's another halacha of Shemei HaKohen that I could make a bracha when I wasn't yoytzeh yet, and I moitzi you with the bracha you considered ki'ilu you made the bracha yourself. Either ki'ilu you moitzi the bracha midin shlichus, or midin that you actually made the bracha ad kedei kach, you should be considered afsaka in tefillah. When the Gemara comes along in the steer, the Rosh brings a steer to sugyas be'amis. The Gemara comes along and says, "V'isha is mechuyev, v'shayla isha is mechuyev v'birkas hamazon the raisa the rabbanon." Nafkamina if isha could be moitze ish in birkas hamazon. If she's mechuyev b'derabanan, so klapei the raisa she's considered ein mechuyev b'dover. Misha ein mechuyev b'dover is not moitzias harabim midei chavas. Or the Moshe the Gemara comes along and says that cotton godel is chayev chiyuv shiur achile of kazais, and cotton is mechuyev b'kedei sviyah. He doesn't need kazais kedei sviyah. What happened if cotton? It could be moitzi. The shaila cotton is not a bar chiyuv min hatayre. Could be moitzi a godel which ate pachas mikashir. So the Gemara comes along and says, even though everyone has a different reason, by cotton he's not mechuyev because he's not mechuyev in mitzvahs. He's only mechuyev derabanan b'din chinuch. And by godel he's not mechuyev because he ate pachas mikashir. One derabanan can be moitzi, the other derabanan. Akoponim as they state in the Gemara, even though they're not in the same sug chiyuv. Afal pichein, somebody who's mechuyev in chiyuv midoraisa, isha and ish. If she is only mechuyev derabanan, he's mechuyev midoraisa. She cannot be moitzi midei chavas. A derabanan can be moitzi derabanan, even though it's two separate derabanan chiyuvim. A derabanan cannot be moitzi deraisa. That's the sugya sagmor in Brochus and Daf Chav. Sugya sagmor in Daf Memches, when the Gemara comes along and says that the story that we said before with Yanei HaMelech, that even though the shiur shtia is not kedei sviyah, because it's pachas mikashir, and it's only in chiyuv derabanan if you drink the wine, shiman b'shetach. Yet it can be moitzi. How could it be moitzi? The only the avada ate kedei sviyah. How could it be moitzi? As they frag the Rosh Hakash. As they frag the Rosh Hakash. Zog the Rosh. There is a chiluk between the ish and the ish. It's a very controversial Rosh. Just like to discuss it since we're talking about the topic, it's very important. The Rosh says that a ish could be moitzi acherim, even if he is yoytze yedei chivas, even though he's only he was yoytze already the mitzvah. About he has the din arvis, so Mimele al the din arvis is considered mechuyev in chayiv chaveri. Al the din Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh, even though Shimon b'shetach did not drink a shiur sviyah, which is the mechayev, he could also, even if he wouldn't drink b'chlal, the reason why he had to drink is because he has to drink. Because it's because anen in the nayol location bracha, you have to drink. But be a soidei, you can be moitzi the other guy yedei chayvasa. B'sheinke be'isha, there is no din arvis. This is the shita sarosha. The isha does not have a din arvis. The din Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh is not said by isha, and therefore she cannot be moitzi a isha yedei chayvasa. This halacha. What happens? I mean, it's a very, very controversial in the debut. They have to know. You come Friday night home, you daven in shul, and you daven the ish, if you make a Shmoneh Esrei, you eat Chivas Kiddush, Minatayre, Kiddush Alayayin, is only the Rabbanan. Minatayre, you could be Yitzeh Kiddush by Tefillah. So Mele, you mechuyev in Kiddush only with the Rabbanan when you come home. Your wife didn't daven Mayev. Yish v'Isha is Yishvu. The mitzvah Shabbos, she's mechuyev in Kiddush, she's mechuyev in Kiddush D'Oraisa. Zog the Neidah B'Yudah, since by Rosh says that Isha there is no din of Arvis, so Ish doesn't have a din Arvis in here. Arvis is bilateral. If I'm not guarantored for you, you're not a guarantor for me. So I can't be moitzi. Zog the Rab Kveg, Zog the Neidah B'Yudah comes out, if you make Kiddush and your wife did not daven yet, you made a Kiddush in Tefillah, you won't be able to be moitzi your wife if they Kiddush. It's a shayla for the Neidah B'Yudah, a shayla aloch l'maisa. If a person daven in shul and his wife didn't daven, he comes home, he could be moitzi her your day Kiddush. Other he says, that's not the pshat is, even though she doesn't have a din arvis, but when anoshim or mekabel arvis or mekabel anoshim, even though ish is not bichlal arvis, but the ish's arvis covers, the writer of ish's arvis covers also the arvis and the noshim of kveger, comes along in Shuv and says avada and avade, there's no chiluk, it's arv and ish. He says the biggest raya, that the story of Yanei HaMelech, she was moitzi a day choive, the wife, the Shleimis Alexander is moitzi, she's a isha, and even if the noshim don't have a din arvis, bevadai noshim have a chiyuv arvis that they could cover the isha as well. Bottom line, what do we have over here in the parak? We have a halacha the bayarden the umekabel leman and historis. Here we're talking about the subject and the topic you're talking about is arvis in historis klape averis. This Kabbalah of Arvis, which is by Stasis Shaila, the Bavli Yerushalmi, is something which was short-lived, not short-lived, but from the time of coming into Eretz Yisrael until Churban Bayis Sheni. That's one thing we learned today. Second thing we learned today, that the din of Arvis is not only a din in Averis, but also a din in Mitzvahs. And as a derivative, there is halacha of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh, that you could be moitzi somebody else in the mitzvah, even though you were already yotzeh. And these additional halacha of Shemei HaKohen, which may or may not need this concept of Kol Yisroel Areivim zelozeh.